Police didn't waste any time in implementing Operation Tortoise. Early this morning, drivers were subjected to random breath tests at Wickham ahead of the Easter long weekend.
We're very worried about people having fatigue, getting frustrated in the traffic and speeding, and also obviously alcohol-related drink driving.
Traffic has already started to bank up across the Hunter as holidaymakers head north. Police are warning drivers to expect bottlenecks at Bulahdelah, Port Macquarie and Kempsey. Extra highway patrol officers have been rostered on for the statewide safety blitz, and double demerit points are also in force.
People can expect to see lots more of us out there. We could be just around the corner when they're travelling along the highway.
And car drivers aren't the only ones being warned about road safety.
We've noticed there has been a rise in our fatalities lately across the northern region, going all the way up to Tweed Heads, where there's been a lot of motorcyclists and pedestrians killed. We're very concerned with that.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's been a long time coming, and certainly any suggestions won't happen overnight, but finally this morning a 15-year plan for 11 kilometres of coastline from Stockton to Merewether was released.
It's time we had a structured plan, not putting band-aids on things and wasting money, just getting ahead and building a good infrastructure for our future and our lifestyle here in the city.
Among the measures, moving the Stockton Surf Club back from the coast to prevent further erosion, as well as creating a restaurant or cafe alongside the ferry terminal. The area at Nobby's would be completely transformed, with the surf club moved back and the addition of a water feature and the big ticket item, a restaurant. The surf club at Newcastle Beach would also be shifted to make way for a natural amphitheatre and shops, and the bogey hole is also in line for an upgrade.
But indicative costs of making that safe is around $250,000, so $250,000. Now that's a fair bit of money, and the community needs to decide whether that money is best spent on the bogey hole.
The plans for Empire Park are expected to create some controversy, with a proposal for shops opposite the surf club. Potential improvements here at Dixon Park don't feature heavily in the draft plan. That's largely because the surf club is in fairly good condition. There are, however, plans for new training facilities, as well as investigating the possibility of a kiosk underneath the surf club. Existing plans to upgrade the coastline at Merewether and rebuild Surf House are included in the document. The draft plan is expected to be endorsed by Newcastle Council on Tuesday before going on public exhibition. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
This is a great result because this will make sure that our school kids who will usually cross the road will actually be able to go in complete safety over the footbridge.
He's already a big enough target for opposing sides. Now Ben Cross will be even harder to miss thanks to his new pink boots. Depending on how many metres he gains for the Knights this season, the big forward is hoping to raise more than $100,000 for cancer research in the Hunter. The disease is close to his heart.
And Andy, who's just recovering from breast cancer, lost a family friend to breast cancer. Father-in-law is a survivor of prostate cancer. Rick Stone's father passed away through prostate cancer.
Cross says he's feeling no ill effects from the concussion which kept him out of Saturday night's loss to Manly.
And the doctor said, look, if you had played and someone illegally knocked me out, head eye or something like that, I'd have no choice but to rule me out for about 4 or 5 weeks, and he said he's done that before.
Cooper Vuna and Junior Sau are also set to return from injury. They're charged with improving Newcastle's defence out wide, a weakness heavily exploited by the Sea Eagles.
They've done that job for us for, a while now, and I think they're comfortable with each other. I'd like to think that we'll be able to handle things a little bit better. We're obviously putting plenty of time into that area of our game.
With Ben Rogers still sidelined, Jared Mullen and Scott Duro get another chance to stake their claim for a permanent halves pairing. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It's regarded as the fastest track in the country, and this afternoon organisers were adding the finishing touches ahead of the Australian Sidecar Championships. Qualifying races begin on Saturday afternoon with the top riders from every state competing for 16 spots in Sunday's finals.
16 riders, 20 heats, A final and B final, and somebody goes out of here as the Australian champion.
Most of them were here in late January for the Newcastle Sidecar Masters, but the world champion missed his chance to familiarise himself with the showground surface.
Titles. Unfortunately, the current world champion, Mick Headland, was injured, had a big crash in New Zealand. He couldn't ride, but he has recovered enough to race, and anything's possible.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
I only bought my bike on Thursday. I haven't ridden a bike for about 3 years, so it's been a challenge.
During the last few months, there has been an enormous amount of rain fallen in southwest Queensland. This has caused an enormous amount of flooding, which has flowed down the river systems of Queensland into New South Wales and will go beyond into South Australia. And the local people there, whilst suffering some inconvenience, have had an amazing mood change after 10 years of drought. They see green grass and growth in the pastures, and they are overjoyed by that, to the point where one woman said, "We now speak with a smile in our voices." That's very much like the disciples after Jesus' death. They were filled with gloom and doom and thought that their lives were over now. But then when he rose from the dead, he filled them with new life and new hope. And that vitality they then shared with others. It's our job at Easter time, celebrating Jesus' resurrection, to share that joy with others too.
There's been a great deal of suffering and hardship, not only in the world, but also in the Hunter and right throughout Australia. There have been many instances of great tragedy, and people are wondering where there can be affirmation and hope. Well, the festival of Easter, which celebrates the raising of Jesus from the dead, is really a great affirmation of what God has done. God has given us tremendous affirmation and a sense of new hope in Easter, and this is the essential message of Easter. So I hope that as you celebrate Easter, and I hope that you do that in a church, you'll find affirmation and hope and be able to release energy so that our community can offer hope to those in most need. May you all have a very happy and joyous Easter.
Very smooth start to the day today, whereas yesterday there were about 400 people lined up when we opened the doors.
Anywhere from $1.40 upwards, people will be clearly being overcharged. And in that case, NRMA would encourage Hunter motorists to dob in a petrol station that's overcharging motorists in the Hunter.
Greg Tillman and his family have been living in his parents' garage for 12 months, something they began doing to save for a deposit on this block of land a few doors down.
We got through to contract exchange time and we were told that we pretty much cannot build on the block of land, so it wasn't worth buying.
Last October, Port Stephens Council zoned Oyster Cove a no-build area after it was included in an updated noise exposure map which considered the impact of the Joint Strike Fighter. Greg's mother can't understand why residents were kept in the dark.
I don't know why they've kept it quiet, but they have not let anybody know. And if Greg had not have gone to buy this block of land, we wouldn't know.
Neighbour Jenny was also unaware of the changes. She'd put her house on the market. Now it looks like she'll be staying put.
Yeah, we had a buyer pull out just recently. I can't say for sure that that was the reason, but obviously word's getting around and you're not going to want to buy a property that you can't do anything with.
Port Stephens Council will consider what, if any, concessions can be made.
Potentially there can be adjustments to flight patterns by the aircraft. There can be some level of acceptance that the noise attenuation won't reach the full Australian standard. There are various options we need to look at very seriously.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
New coastal surf clubs, restaurants, roads, playgrounds and paths throw in the removal of the South Newcastle skate park and a bogey hole upgrade, and you've potentially got quite a bill. According to the Lord Mayor, a new surf club alone can cost around $5 million.
Some of the development around Newcastle Beach, for example,
will be extremely expensive. I believe that will only come from the private sector. There may be money coming from state and federal government.
We need to have a group in place that explores what the priorities are, how we fund that. But I think that, rather than look at the negatives, we should be looking at the positives.
Newcastle developer Jeff McCloy says the master plan is a good start. He believes private investors may be interested, but says the Hunter should get its fair share of state funding first. The plan will be on public display for 40 days. Among the changes, the closure of South Newcastle Beach Skate Park in favour of a playground and seating. And after an 8-year battle, Dickson Park Surf Club's proposed cafe is still in limbo, although the plan mentions a kiosk on the ground level.
Hopefully by next summer we'll have something in there so they have an income stream.
But club members say they don't believe it's appropriate to remove existing surf club space for a kiosk. They want a separate building for a cafe.
Ellen Barry was a late inclusion for this year's Golden Slipper and following a wide barrier draw is considered a 70-1 shot. A win in the world's richest 2-year-old race would be a true Cinderella story. Following the Newcastle horse's 5th to slipper favourite Military Rose in the Riesling Stakes on March 20, trainer Chris Lees has opted to remove the blinkers.
I thought the blinkers might just sharpen her up and make a race a little bit keener, but probably didn't really have the effect that we wanted, and he's decided to take them back off her.
The filly has become the pride of Lee's stable, becoming his first runner to qualify for the slipper after Samantha Miss failed to earn a spot in 2008. The horse seems to be enjoying her time in the sun, but her handlers say she'll get no special treatment.
She's been to the beach a couple of times the last week or so, but apart from that, everything's sort of try and keep everything pretty simple for her.
The possibility of a wet track in Sydney tomorrow will only increase the filly's chances.
She's probably a little bit forgotten in the field, in an open race, so anything can happen.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Edgeworth was soundly beaten by Hamilton in last year's semi-finals, but a win over Olympic in last week's Charity Shield was the ideal way to exercise those demons.
To play them again in the Charity Shield and beat them with 10 men and 2-1 down was a real confidence boost for the boys.
Having added names such as Troy Halpin and former Jet Joel Woods, the Eagles fear no one.
We lost 9 very experienced players, but I think we had to sort of move past and look forward to the future.
Olympic has won plenty of silverware but never claimed the premiership. New coach Michael Bolch says consistency will be the key, especially in the wake of that loss to Edgeworth.
Hopefully it's the kick in the bum that the boys needed coming in the first game of the season.
The coach brought 6 players with him from Valentine Phoenix, most notably Dave Hodgson. He's expected to form a potent combination with captain Matt Austin.
Great leadership between them two, Pete Junkwitz, Harry James. Really good leadership group for the young guys coming through the club.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Never won one in the 60 years, so there'll be a lot of pressure on them to do that. They'll want that really badly, so hopefully we can get on top of them and keep the pressure there, so keep that record intact.
Last minute touches include just cleaning out the bearings, making sure everything's running smoothly, a brake check, any safety things that we need to worry about, and probably a quick wash down so that she looks good on the day.
More than 60 classic boats like this Caporn Timber 50-footer were arriving at the Toronto Wharf today ahead of the weekend festival. For devoted boaties like Bruce and Thelma Morley, their Virtue 26-foot timber yacht, Tui of Opua, is far more than just a plaything.
It's our home at the moment, and we've lived on and off for 10 years on the boat, and it's just everything we desire.
Dave and Jenny Myers' 12-foot putt-putt had been rotting under a tree for 30 years before they rescued her and named her Polly. Since then, they've voyaged far and wide.
From the Rumour to Caloundra and in between all the different rivers, we go up and down the coast throughout the year.
The boats, all built or designed before 1975, are on display tomorrow and Sunday.
Keeping them alive, that's the main thing. It's an era that's, a past era, but the number of enthusiasts trying to keep them alive and keep the motors going with very few parts available.
Like every love affair, you've got to work on it, and your mistress is capable of breaking down, of losing her face paint and going all to pieces if you don't look after it properly. So especially with wooden boats, it's a labour of love.
It took just 10 minutes for fire to rip through Richard Pettigrew's home last October and turn his life upside down. The Lake Macquarie grandfather has spent the past 5 months living in rental accommodation with his family, waiting for insurer Allianz to either demolish or repair the property. But so far, that hasn't happened.
It's a long time. If I didn't pay my premiums for 5 months, they'd be jumping on me.
And that's not his only issue.
They were going to pay the rent for us, but now we've had to pay the rent and they've had to reimburse us.
Mr Pettigrew claims for the past month they haven't even done that.
Can you afford that?
Not really, to be quite honest with you.
This long weekend, he's had to enlist friends' help to clear out his burnt home, which he wants to be demolished. While he says Allianz has agreed on a dollar amount to pay him, he hasn't seen any money.
I just want them to fix me up, pay me out, pay at least another month, 2 months rent for me, and then I'll walk away and everybody will be happy.
The new tender process should end very shortly in the coming weeks, and when that's assessed, providing everything's been complied with, then we'll move on to the construction phase, which is around the 4-month mark.
So exciting. I was really nervous coming in. I knew the competition would be really stiff today, but it was great to race and to finally get to the final and win.
They're two of the Knights' best big men, but Ben Cross and Steve Simpson are yet to be locked in for next season. Simpson has reportedly expressed interest in a new 2-year deal, with discussions to begin next week.
The price will be the thing, with the club and Simo coming to terms, and we're all keen on seeing Simo continue to forge out a career with the Knights.
The coach would love to poach a big name, but it depends on who's available.
We have got a few players. We're not going to mention names at the moment. We're definitely put some irons in the fire and seeing exactly where some of these particular players are.
Meanwhile, the squad is injury-free heading into Monday's game against Penrith. The coach is leaning towards Wes Nagama over Cameron Ciraldo in the battle for the final spot on the bench.
What Wes brings us is the ability to play back row and the ability to play in the outside backs. I've had a few issues with Cooper and the calves in the last few weeks, so it gives us a little bit of insurance, I suppose, there.
Next couple of weeks I go to Tasmania to play the Australian Junior and the Interstate Series with the New South Wales State team. And just after that I come back and I go to Western Australia to play the Handed Junior Masters.
A desperate search. The SES today covered every inch of Lake St Clair, but their sonar equipment couldn't find John Saunders.
I suppose as time goes on, then our chances of hopefully finding him alive obviously decrease.
The 54-year-old took his boat onto the water at 5:30 last night. It was found 2 hours later, washed up on the opposite side of the lake.
There was also a thong that's been identified as his that was found over on the western foreshore as well of the dam.
No one at this popular camping spot saw what happened. Police are investigating if the man had drunk alcohol before hitting the water last night. His family are helping police with their investigations, but were too distraught to talk to us on camera today. They did say, however, the man wasn't a good swimmer. And late today, the family provided a statement. It describes Mr Saunders as a family man who loves to fish and spend time on his boat. The search will continue tomorrow.
We've made contact with our police divers and we sent a request for assistance to them.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Chasing 230 for victory, Cardiff was struggling early this morning, sitting at 3 for 29. Captain Anthony Hobson and Gavin Wilson did their best to steady the ship, but a change of bowling for Charlestown saw Wilson fall to Chris Connors. Minutes later, Hobson survived a spirited appeal for LBW, before Aaron Payne sent Jason Keelan back to the pavilion, as Cardiff teetered on the brink of collapse at 5 for 66. Staring down the barrel of defeat, the captain held his nerve, Hobson displaying the full array of shots to give his side a fighting chance. At the other end, Corey Loveday played an important cameo. His innings of 48 started with a bang, a big six the perfect way to kickstart the run chase. After lunch, Loveday made way for Michael Corrigan, who did his part to keep the skipper on strike. The captain made it a grand final to remember, reaching 127 not out to carry his team to a famous victory.
almost 16,000 breath tests in 3 days. 46 drink drivers so far, a figure police are satisfied with.
Although there's still a number that want to drink and drive, they're the hardcore few, and they'll be dealt with by the courts in the coming months.
But the Easter Road Blitz, known as Operation Tortoise, has seen drivers fail to slow down. 732 have been caught speeding, 190 more than last year.
The number of young people that have been detected at really high speeds, and I mean some of them up in the 200 kilometres an hour, is really concerning.
In the past 24 hours, a 23-year-old P-plater lost her licence after allegedly being caught driving 44 kilometres an hour over the speed limit, while a 23-year-old man blew .12 at Waratah. But police have achieved their aim. For the first time in at least 5 years, there has not been a single death on the Hunters roads over the Easter long weekends. The return of holiday makers, however, is already causing a few traffic headaches.
The operation ends at midnight tonight, and of course double demerit points also finish at midnight tonight.
Gary says he's become a prisoner in his own home. He now rarely ventures outside after a spate of frightening vandal attacks.
There's nowhere else to go.
In the latest incident, a lounge was set alight in the foyer of his unit block while he was asleep. Several nearby trees were also targeted by arsonists. Robin Jones has lived in the Fowler Street block for the last decade and says it's become a terrifying place.
I used to always say I would stay here because I love all the trees and the birds and everything. But now, no, I don't want to be here anymore.
It's not just housing department properties being damaged. Peter Levy's fence was destroyed by fire a few weeks ago, and he blames gangs of young people.
Well, the ones I've seen range from probably 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Then you've got the later teenagers.
Tenants say the youths meet here most days from mid-afternoon right through to the early hours of the morning, yelling and drinking. Many more residents came to speak to us today describing damage to their units, but were too scared to speak on camera, fearing retaliation. Member for Newcastle, Jodie McKay, says she's acutely aware of the problems and will soon meet with the local police commander and Housing New South Wales. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
There's really no need for these guys to be out in the regions fundraising. They don't go there and they should stay away.
I'm riding my tractor across the bridge.
It's a great school holiday activity, gets kids out of the house for a while and gives them something to do. So yeah, it's great.
The drama started early at the Australian Championships as two of the favourites clashed in Heat 2. Defending champion Mark Mitchell and Jason Aldridge from North Queensland came to blows on the second lap. Mitchell was eventually taken to hospital, while Aldridge was suspended for the rerun. Unfazed, he and passenger Cal Campbell went on to win 4 straight to qualify for the A final. As the rain continued to fall, the track got faster, and it made for some hair-raising moments. 6-time national champion Darren Treloar adapted quickly to secure his place in the big race. Broken Hill's Rick House was on fire, taking an unbeaten record into the decider. Current world champion Mick Hedlund was doing it tough, forced to qualify the hard way by winning the B final. With the top 4 decided, 4 laps separated the riders from national glory. Sitting third from the inside, Aldridge made the perfect start. Before the pair cruised to victory, ensuring the trophy would head to Queensland. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Heading out with the lead group, Kurt Barnes knew it would take something special to win the year's first event on the One Asia Tour. His approach to the par 3 second set up a birdie and kept him in touch with the leaders. On the par 5 seventh, the big hitter set up an eagle opportunity thanks to an impressive approach. Despite missing the long-range attempt, Barnes tapped in for birdie to continue his climb up the leaderboard. By the 9th, the boy from Muswellbrook appeared to have the ball on a string, judging his drive perfectly to avoid the cart path. But his challenge for the title faltered on the back 9. He was lucky to save par following a wayward approach on 11. Still just 2 behind the leaders, Barnes then recorded back-to-back bogeys on 12 and 13 to erase any hope of claiming the winner's cheque. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
When it comes to regional New South Wales, it seems Maitland is the pick of the crop. According to population forecasts, 105,000 people will call the city home by 2036, up from 69,000 at present. Why is everyone moving to Maitland?
Because we are the progressive city. We are the can-do city.
Mayor Peter Blackmore says the council's been preparing for that growth over the last decade by supporting residential and commercial development.
I'm very confident that Maitland will be ready to cope with that influx of residents, but of course we must have the support of governments.
That support would help fund a long list of infrastructure projects, a list which will keep growing with the population.
You're going to need an increase in public transport, you're going to need more schools, police stations, we're going to need a new hospital facility to cater for the increase in people.
Maitland isn't the only region in the Hunter expecting significant growth. By 2036, Cessnock's population is predicted to increase by 40% to 67,000, while Port Stephens and Singleton are expected to grow by 39%. Planning Minister Tony Kelly says that growth will benefit the entire state.
In some of the rural and regional areas, there'll be significant contributors to economic growth.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
The doors are locked and the workshop is empty, and according to the Salvation Army, it's a disappointing chapter in its long history in the Hunter.
This Way Up Furniture has closed, and sadly, because it was a program that was much loved and appreciated by the community here.
For more than a decade, This Way Up provided young people with woodworking skills. Some even completed apprenticeships and a certificate in carpentry, giving them the skills to gain full-time employment. But sadly, for several staff and the trainees, it had to come to an end, closing last week. The program had been under review for a couple of years. It was supposed to be partly self-funding. Unfortunately, the furniture sales didn't go anywhere near subsidising the program.
The sales didn't generate the way we wanted, and therefore the program, which is very resource intensive, was costing us quite a bit of money to run.
The Salvation Army says it will use the building and funding for a wider range of programs which will benefit a greater number of young people.
A war hero gone, but not forgotten. Today, the widow of Alec McCloskey accepted a rare US medal.
I don't think words can express. It's just a wonderful feeling, and it's 40 years, but he'll be up there looking down and proud.
There are 10 who've been awarded this award for this particular action in Vietnam, but it is not a common thing. It requires a special act of bravery in support of US forces.
And those who knew him best say it was well deserved.
They opened up with the machine guns and pinned him down along with his men. And one of his men was missing.
So alone, he went back out into the battlefield under particularly heavy fire and found that soldier and brought him back to safety.
An act of heroism Mr. McCloskey never shared with his family.
It's unbelievable that he went through all this and we didn't know. So, we've only just found out since receiving this.
Meanwhile, Governor-General Quentin Bryce today handed the Gloucester Cup to the crew of HMAS Newcastle. It was the first in a trifecta of awards and recognises excellence across the board.
May you carry this cup and bear its gold star with distinction.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
we believe that we will be able to get it under $2 million, and that's certainly our intention. That won't be coming from ratepayers' money.
There wasn't much to smile about at Knight's recovery this morning as players came to terms with the fact they'd let another lead slip.
Disappointing to lose a game like that. We sort of had it for the taking. To let it slip away the way it did was really disappointing, but we're lucky we've got a quick turnaround this week to get back on board against South.
Last night, the coach and his 5'8" were scathing in their assessment of that second half performance.
Our attitude in D just really stunk, I thought, in the second half, and it wasn't good enough. And particularly, I thought it was more our middle than our edges this week.
Once a side like that gets on a roll, it's very hard to stop it. But yeah, I thought we could do a lot better, definitely.
Following a brilliant attacking display in the opening 40, including a hat-trick from winger Aku Uate, the Knights' defence went missing after the break. Holding out the opposition will be the main focus at training this week, in particular defending kicks.
I probably still scored too many tries from kicks, I would say, and there was a couple of really dumb plays there for us.
Corey Patterson will escape suspension thanks to an early guilty plea after he was charged with a Grade 1 dangerous contact in the 80th minute. Meanwhile, hooker Isaac de Gois will be on light duties this week after copping a heavy knock in the opening minutes. Ruben Zadkovic was supposed to join Newcastle 2 years ago before he was poached by Derby County. Today, the Jets finally got their man.
Newcastle's a very similar place to Wollongong, where I'm from, so, and with having a few good friends here and working with Branko and everything about it just seemed to fit, so it was quite an easy decision.
The versatile 23-year-old can play in a range of positions, but says he's happy to slot in wherever needed. He admits he can't rule out a return to playing overseas if the right offer comes along, but for now his focus is on establishing himself with the Jets and eventually the national team.
I had a small taste of being in Socceroo camps and playing in that game against China in Sydney, and it was a brilliant experience. So definitely got goals to get back into that squad.
The addition of Zadkovic leaves just a handful of spots open on the Jets roster. Management says Ruben's 3-year deal is proof it's building a solid foundation and allowing the fans more time to connect with players.
It's all looking good. I think it's the earliest our team's been settled in the history of our club, and it augurs well for a good season, a balanced season, and
It's about a goblin named Grubble who has all sorts of funny adventures. He casts a spell, he's in a little bit of trouble, but in the end, it all comes right.
The puppets are all great big and life-size. You've got a 9-foot troll and a big 7-foot dragon.
After yesterday's rise, the official interest rate now stands at 4.25%. Hunter Business Chamber CEO Peter Shinnick says while that figure is still close to historically low levels, the decision will do nothing for business confidence and that there are disturbing signs that the local economy is slowing. Mr Shinnick points to falling retail and vehicle sales along with building approvals during February, which he says shows how Hunter consumers are adjusting their spending habits to cope with rate rises. However, in stark contrast, a Hudson report released today asserts that confidence amongst the Hunter region's employers has surged again, with 43.7% of employers planning to increase staff numbers between April and June. That's above the state average of 30.2% and the national mark of 31.5%, while 58.3% of employers in the resources sector will boost employee levels over the next 3 months. Meanwhile, another report commissioned by Debt Rescue has revealed the emotional and psychological impact excessive debt is having on Australians. The report found 63% of those surveyed suffered from either depression or anxiety, 83% suffered from stress, while 59% said debt has impacted on their relationships. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
While it was mostly empty today due to the dreary weather, Tramway Park is usually a popular place for picnickers and office workers thanks to the ocean views. It's one of the last remaining green open spaces along this section of the Esplanade, and now the site has been earmarked by the state government for potential low-rise development.
It's been developed and built out all along that area of the coast, and now the state government is pushing for that last public park to be developed. I think it's wrong.
The draft coastal master plan suggests short stay accommodation set into the hillside, maintaining views from the top of the park. But this concept isn't sitting well with Labor councillors and Greens councillor Michael Osborne, who's concerned it's privatisation of public space.
I think there are too many areas along the coast that are being identified for development, for private development, and really it's just a land grab.
Labor councillors are also disappointed there is no plan to restore the world map in the canoe pool, and they do not support multiple retail buildings in Empire Park along Memorial Drive. However, councillors last night did endorse the master plan, which means from Monday it will be placed on public exhibition for the next 6 weeks.
A challenge set by a UK newspaper has now reached the shores of Lake Macquarie. Today, more than 50 people signed a pledge to be part of the 2010 challenge, including local MPs, sporting legends and the Mayor.
Generally, if people start on one thing, they tend to do other things as well, and that's what it's about.
Everyone's promise is different but has the same aim, to reduce the world's carbon footprint by 10%. Wood Rising Preschool will encourage waste-free lunchboxes and replace its petrol-guzzling bus with a walking one.
It's got to be something that they're physically involved in so that they can make the connections and understand, and then ask questions and understand from there.
While the Swansea Belmont Nippers will become more water-wise.
We're trying to save water by having quicker showers and hosing our boards off quicker.
Lake Macquarie's 12 scout groups are each taking on a different challenge, including creating a wildlife corridor.
We've got our scouting programs, which we have lots of environmental initiatives to earn badges, but this is special because it helps the local community.
Community groups and individuals are being encouraged to join the challenge by visiting the council's website. Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
It's a little bit sad in a way that all that hard work and now it's over, but it's also at the same time very rewarding.
Each year, Gresford's main street comes alive with the clunk and clatter of billy carts. The town's annual derby is a tradition stretching back more than a decade and is billed as the event that's put Gresford on the map.
A lot of people like the frills and the spills and the chase of it all, and a lot of people come from a lot of places to watch us do it.
This year's event was the biggest yet, with 45 carts entered of all shapes and sizes, from ships that pass wind to kitted out a la cartes. But what makes the perfect cart?
The more aerodynamic they are, the faster they are, and the heavier they are, it gives them a little advantage as well.
Well, except in this case.
I hate to use the expression she handles like a cow, but she does. The steering is very poor.
Driver's ability plays a part too.
Well, one of the best things about the Billy Cart Derby is absolutely anybody can have a go. And I'm told the driving one's pretty easy. All right, let's go, Charlie. Smooth sailing. Ah! Definitely the 2011 winner.
And there was more than one novice behind the wheel, with a federal member for Patterson finding his groove.
Well, it was exciting, and I can see a reason to put more road funding into Gresford after that little trip.
But Mr Baldwin's got nothing on Newcastle's Alison Cox, who's once again been named the Derby's grand champion.
I think that just goes to prove that women are much better drivers than men. Oh, that's for sure.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
From the fairways of Toronto to Augusta and the US Masters, Nathan Green got there on the back of his breakthrough US PGA Tour victory, the Canadian Open last year. He readily admits to being nervous, especially considering he'll be the first of the 100 or so contenders to tee off.
A bit nervous, yeah. I think, I know any week when you're playing a course that's this hard, you sort of get a bit anxious and that sort of thing. But, yeah, sort of got a day and a half to get the game into good shape. I've sort of seen it 2.5 times now.
Green has been in this sort of company before. He contested US Opens in 2006 and 2007 and 3 PGA Championships. This time around, though, it's been impossible to ignore the Tiger factor. And Green thinks with everything that's happened, Woods is vulnerable.
Everyone's pretty interested to see how he's going to do after 5 months away from the game. He's easily the most talented player in the world, but you just sort of lose a little bit of your match sharpness when you don't play. He's easily the best player in the field, so if he gets it going, then he's still going to be the man to beat.
Green will play in the traditional Par 3 tournament tomorrow before teeing off on Friday, our time.